The US is putting more and more pressure on China to limit economic ties with Russia. By trying to isolate Moscow from Chinese financial institutions, Washington is putting pressure on Moscow's war fund, according to Nikkei Asia, the head of the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, an agency within the Department of the Treasury. Andrea Gacki is currently in the East Asian nation to urge officials and financial institutions to take additional measures to prevent sanctioned transactions and goods from reaching Russia. As the conflict between Russia and Ukraine approaches its second year, the United States is seeking to further punish individuals involved by implementing secondary penalties. So far, Moscow has been able to weather the exclusion from the SWIFT financial messaging system, the flight of Western companies, and the freezing of its foreign currency reserves thanks to the Russo-China cooperation. Gacki met twice in Hong Kong on Wednesday with officials from various Western and Chinese banks, including Citigroup, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of China, and Deutsche Bank. Reports indicate that bank officials questioned the American delegation about further measures they could take to monitor deals that benefited Russia. According to one attendee reported by Nikkei, U.S. officials are seeking to reduce risk and encourage financial institutions to step up their efforts, including as conducting transaction reviews and limiting shipments to Russia. Upon Thursday's arrival in Beijing, a two-day visit by the Treasury Department delegation began. They were expected to meet with their Chinese counterparts for the third round of talks since the Joint Economic and Financial Working Groups were launched in 2023, according to the Financial Times, who cited a Treasury official. The meeting was supposed to cover a wide array of financial issues, including anti-money laundering initiatives and cross-border laws. Upon receiving separate written requests for comment from Newsweek, neither the U.S. Treasury nor the Russian Foreign Ministry promptly responded. In July, on her first official visit to the Chinese capital, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen unveiled the working groups to prepare for President Joe Biden's summit with Xi Jinping in San Francisco in November. According to Bloomberg's reported sources, two Chinese banks were planning to cut off money to Russian companies on the U.S. Treasury's sanctions list earlier this week in order to evade the new secondary restrictions. Russian President Vladimir Putin's February 2022 invasion led to sanctions imposed by the West and its allies on Moscow. In response, Russia extended preferential trade conditions to countries perceived as neutral or supportive in exchange for its exports, particularly oil and gas. Friend of Russia. Last month, China made the announcement that commerce between the two countries reached a new milestone in 2023. The total value of all transactions hit $240 billion from January to November, up 26% over the same period last year and more than double the amount recorded in 2018. Key economic partners like the US, EU, and Japan pulling out, Russia is increasingly reliant on China, the world's second-largest economy, as it seeks to fill the void. Trading with China makes up over a third of Russia's total trade, making it the country's most important trading partner. However, in 2023, only 3% of China's entire trade volume was with its northern neighbor, according to the State Council, China's cabinet. Given the magnitude of this trade imbalance, Russian interests are especially at risk when Chinese businesses pursue their own goals, such as protecting themselves from secondary penalties imposed by the United States and its allies. According to a paper published last month by Russian economists Alexander Nobel and Alexander Firanchuk, there is a possibility that specific enterprises could be subject to secondary penalties, which could impact the two countries' commercial relations.